I have MP Morantz for the first 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all the economists for being here today. Perhaps I'll start with you, Ms. Young. The government of Canada announced in its budget that it's going to be increasing the capital gains inclusion rate from 50% to 66 and 2/3%. They've just introduced legislation to make that happen this morning, or yesterday morning. From an economist perspective, do you think that the capital gains changes proposed by the Liberal government will lead to more or less investment in home building?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Maybe what I'll, I haven't seen details of the legislation, so maybe what I will talk more broadly about is the impact of the costs of some of the headwinds to supply right now, and so very obviously a big one right now are high interest rates. So that has been adding.
I hate to interrupt, but I have a fairly focused issue that I'd like to try and get a response on. The government has said they're increasing the capital gains inclusion rate, which means that builders will pay more tax in capital gains when they go and sell the projects that they built. From an economist's perspective, doesn't that put a damper on risk-taking in terms of building new residential projects? Aside from knowing the details of the legislation, just in principle, as an economist, don't you think that increasing the capital gains tax would make it less likely that someone might build an apartment building or attractive homes?
We certainly know right now in the industry that that development charges are a very big component. Some cite anywhere from 20 to 30% of the cost of new supply, and so that certainly, as a big chunk of what it costs to build, has been a deterrent to new supply.
Mr. Kavich, maybe I'll try the same question with you. Do you think the increase in the capital gains inclusion rate will lead to more or less investment in home building?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. So in the context of overall investment activity within real estate, there is potentially an impact either when sellers look to list properties in advance of a tax change, or if the long-term economics of a tax increase alter the expectations of return going forward. So whether, and I personally haven't seen the exact details of the legislation either, so I don't want to comment too deeply on it. Also, real estate's a very long-dated asset, so the impact may or may not be as significant as in some other asset classes. And more broadly speaking, I think as an investment asset class today, macroeconomic conditions are playing the overriding factor here because interest rates have increased, expectations of house price growth have decreased, and current levels of rental yield don't stack up very well to risk-free government assets. So as an investment asset class today, real estate has kind of fallen back in terms of overall activity. So how a capital gains tax change fits in that broader context of weakening activity already would be very hard to flesh out and put a precise estimate on, I would think.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question maybe a little bit of a different way. If you were going to advise the government on the type of policy they should bring in to deal with the housing crisis, which is what this committee is studying right now and is why you're here, would you suggest to them that increasing the capital gains tax would be one of those policies?
I don't, Mr. Speaker, with all honesty, I don't want to project the impact of a specific tax measure that I haven't fully studied in this context.
Okay, Mr. Sondhi, quickly with you, same question. Do you think that increasing the capital gains inclusion rate will lead to more or less investment in home building?
Yeah, so we wrote on this. We released a report that was sort of a fulsome take on the latest federal housing plan, and the capital gains inclusion rate was rolled into that report. And in it, we said that the impact would be highly uncertain. It's difficult to know now because we don't know. We don't have a line of sight with respect to how the legislation will be fully rolled out. But there's some risk that it'll be a negative factor for investment moving forward, which would potentially weigh on rental supply. That's a potential impact. Again, we have to wait to see how the details sort of roll out and wait to see how the market reacts to the information. In the resale market, our thought was that it could cause a near-term boost in listings and supply as potential sellers work to get ahead of the June 25th deadline, which could supply some modest downward pressure on average home prices in the near term.
Thank you.
Morantz, and now we're going to MP Zerowitz, and I guess you're sharing your
Okay.
time. So we'll start with MP Lawrence for the first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will be splitting my time with Mr. Epp, but Ms. Young, I'd just like to put actually a quote that you gave on a podcast not too long ago, and just wanted to make sure you agree with it. It's specifically with respect to the capital gains. You seemed unwilling to go into those waters, despite my question or Mr. Moranz's questions, but you did before, and I just wanted to confirm that you feel the same way. You said, and I quote here, and yet we have measures like this that are clearly punitive to investment in Canada. You're talking about capital gains. So it is a big change. And the signal probably doesn't sit well with a lot of folks in terms of what it means for competitiveness and agility of Canada's landscape. Do you still agree with those comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. And yes, I still agree with those. I agree with my other colleagues' comments made as well. First of all, situating in the bigger picture of what are creating some of the headwinds and the uncertainty around it. I'd also go back to my, opening points about seeing housing as a system. And this is one example where, we do need to look overall at our tax structure.
Thank you. My time is limited, especially since I'm splitting with Mr. Epp. But I just want to, if I could just get a brief answer to this, do you believe, as I do, that a capital gains taxation is unhelpful? A capital gains increase is unhelpful?
I think certainly the signal is negative, in that we need to look more broadly at our tax system to reorient it towards growth enhancements.
Thank you, Ms. Young.